friendship.
Hey, welcome back.
Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 129th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I'm your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we have another community creation, the first that we're going to see from MArtyTheFearless, and this is going to be I guess it's going to be a race that has 3 sub-races with it. So we basically have a type of race here, so it's not really a race with multiple sub-races like we've seen before. This is going to be more of a category of race with 3 sub races that we're going to review, and then we're going to be looking at them a little bit differently. Normally, with the larger individual reviews, we try to look for the balance, the individual input, but we have heard from Marty that these may or may not be specific to a type of setting or to a certain type of narrative. So we are going to kind of approach it as as openly from a D&D standpoint as possible to see, are these a complete enough series that one could take this as a whole and put it into their, to their own campaign. So we do have a little bit of details that are missing that may be lore specific to Marty's campaign, and we can ask those questions if we need it, but we are going to try our best to just look at these as if you were taking this and if you just picked up a new D&D book or a new supplemental and this was a new race for it. So that's how we're going to kind of look at it for ourselves today. We have 3 of these sub races, all from the same category, and then if this one goes successful, I think we have another category of races from him, as well as 2 additional submissions. So we have a lot from Marty coming up that we are excited for. But I think going on Genius, that is what it was. Yes, Marty, thank you so much. Genius, I say category, but Genius or species, whatever you want to call it. We're saying race, but when you say race in D&D, it's kind of having an expectation of what we're talking about. But you guys will see as soon as we pull it up. But yes,
I do like the terminology. Like genus is like specifically like a gene.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely more
or whatever.
Accurate. It's 100% more accurate to call it a genus.
I get that. I get the vibe.
But we're really excited about that. But real quick for quick updates, I think the only update we still have is the upcoming community stream.
Yes. Yes.
I'm pretty sure we're done with voting. We still have 2 days left, but it seems like those who care about voting have voted. So it looks like we are going to be doing the pop culture build, so I'm going to be starting to prep for that. We already have the character in mind.
Yes,
so
yes,
essentially what we're going to do for this, we kind of have already decided. So how this is going to work, the pop culture builds series, whenever we do these episodes, essentially it's going to fall into 3 parts, at least the way that I've looked at it. But it's going to fall into 3 parts, and essentially we're going to stage it out as a define, create, and build stage. And essentially what we want to do is try to work this in to make sure that we're all on the same page of the understanding of what we're trying to build, and then go through the stages of integrating it into a D&D format as best we can. So the define section will be us essentially talking about the character that we've chosen, looking at their actual backstory, their current state. We have decided that, because these characters have sometimes super deep and rich backstories and can be almost, cult classics in a way, where there's like super deep knowledge of like, oh, but in this other comic book that's from another series, if you read on this chapter, they actually talk about them, right? Like, I think what we're going to do is we're going to take like the base knowledge, the standard, like, we don't need to get that deep into the knowledge. We just need to know the basics.
Yeah.
Who are they now? What backstory do we know about them if they have one? What powers and abilities do they have? And that's essentially the definition of what we want. Is we just want basic backstory, basic who are they, how do they act? Give us a snapshot of what the character is, not just what they can do, but we want the general aspect of what the character is all about. If we were to take someone like Superman, the idea that, he's humanoid but not human, that he has a mundane job, hides his power.
Yes.
Those type of details are the things that we're going to want to look for. His mannerisms, the fact that he doesn't, he chooses not to hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that we're going to look for on top of, okay, what are the things that he can do, right? Jump tall buildings, he can take a bullet wound. Like, those are the kind of things that we'll do in the definition stage. Just everyone's on the same page of what and sometimes things are going to have multiple versions. So this definition phase will also help us define what version we're using.
Right.
Because, we were talking about this earlier. Like, let's say we take someone like Spider-Man. If, depending upon which version you want to use, do you want to use the standard comic version that, you're used to watching? Or do you want to take the enhanced Avengers version with Tony Stark's nanosuit?
Mm-hmm.
Those are two completely different builds. So that's what we want to do in that particular category. The create category is where we try to define the best starting position in terms of D&D. So these are going to be the things like deciding race, deciding, personality, mannerisms, characteristics, essentially trying to build out, what the entity, what kind of the same process you would do as building a character. You kind of think, oh, I want to be, a half elf and, blah, blah, blah. That's what I'll look like. And then eventually you end with, okay, what do I want to be able to do? And that's where we end with the class. And that's kind of what we're going to do is we're going to define what the character would look like without their powers in D&D first. And then once we have that baseline, then we're going to go into from the create phase, we go into the build phase, which is starting at square one. Now, how do we get to that build? But we're going to do it a little bit different. And I think this is where I'm kind of most excited about this, because unlike, and I think Kage has brought this up before, unlike how we've seen others do these builds where they take something famous and they put it into D&D, I would say pretty much every time I've ever seen it done, they take what they found and assume that's the end result. So whichever build that they do, whichever pop culture character or hero that they take, they assume that what you know about them is the final result, essentially the level 20, what you need to get to. And so they build everything from the ground up, right? So every build they make, you only ever get to reach to the point of that character. That character is the epitome. What we want to do is, based on what we know about the character, we want to take a different approach. And based on the abilities, the things that they can do, based on comparison to others, in the same realm, like you take the Avengers world, you take the regular Spider-Man versus, Iron Man versus Hulk. If you just put them side by side, you could technically imagine that they probably all are different levels. They're not all the same level.
Yes.
Both not only experience, not just because Peter Parker's a kid, but what Tony Stark can do with his suit, implemented in D&D, the feats, the class abilities, all of the things that he can do, is probably he's the highest leveled, or not the strongest, but he's the highest leveled of all three of them, right? Based on what we know they can actually do. In terms of like, usually by level, 15, you'd have all these things, right? The ability of flight, the ranged weapons, the melee weapons, the ability to dash extra. Like he has all of these things that you could feature into D&D, but Spider-Man has a couple of those, but not to as much of an extent. He probably wouldn't match to that same level as he is, right? But then you take nanosuit version of him versus nanosuit Tony Stark or nanosuit Iron Man. Those are probably equal.
Right.
So I say all this because what we want to do is once we've defined what the character is, we want to see, as we know them, what would be their D&D equivalent level. So instead of trying to say, here's the person we're going to, and we're assuming that as they are, that's max level, we're going to take them and compare them to other builds and go, this may only be a level 8. This may only be a level 10. And the fun part about that is then what we have to do is we'll have to fit everything we know about that character between level 1 and whatever established level we believe that they are. And then we're going to have the fun, we get to have the fun, not have to, but then we get to have the fun of extrapolating, well, what could they become, right? Like assume that you didn't know about the nanosuit Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. Assume that you only ever knew about like the 90s comic version or even the 80s comic version, right? But before we get to what we know now, before he appeared in Avengers, if you just look at like his base comic, that may not be a level 20 character compared to D&D, right? So if you depend on which version you take of him and which version that we want to convert, he may be at a different level than a different version of him, that has additional abilities and additional options. So I think that's where it's going to be a little bit more unique with us, is instead of just automatically assuming that you want to build up to that character as the pinnacle.
Gotta hydrate, my friend.
Oh, hydration happening. But that's what I'm most excited about, is trying to figure out what something could be, and then what hasn't been thought of that would be their next level in the D&D equivalent.
I definitely think that, like you said, a lot of the other pop culture type builds that I've seen before, they've all presented themselves as level 20 builds, and I just genuinely don't think that every character qualifies as a level 20, at least not yet, right? Because when I look at like the scale in D&D of what is level 20, is that close to godlike, right? Like you're close to being able to and again, when you think about the character, like take Thor for instance, right? He's supposed to be godlike. He's supposed to be on that god tier level. So having him be at a place like level 20 makes sense. But like when you look at putting him up against somebody like, and again, I hate to do it, Hawkeye, right? Like what's going to happen?
But Hawkeye's a great example because Hawkeye is definitely, you would think, a minimum level 10 based on what he can do. But you put him against almost any other Avenger,
and he's going to get squished.
Yeah, he sorely lacks a lot of the leveled abilities. So like, again, if we were to do all of the Avengers, I would put Thor probably around like first level, like the first time we see Thor, I'd probably put him around maybe like between 14 and 16, because later we see that he gets that like buff ability where he can like, call it. Like I look at that as his capstone. His basically ability to do the call of the lightning and buff himself. Mm-hmm. So if you think about, that's really, for the most part, of that in the new weapon is really what he earned throughout his, again, we're talking about movies mostly, not his whole comic.
Yeah.
But looking at just like what most people know. Because again, and this is the other part about the define section, right? When we do the define category, it's not just about defining the character. If we choose Thor, it's not about just defining Thor. It's what version of Thor. Are we doing movie version, like Marvel movie Thor? Are we doing comic book Thor?
Yes.
Are we doing cartoon Thor? Not because, I mean, most of them aren't drastically different, but they do represent different. Like,
exactly
what we saw Thor do in the movies is not everything he was able to do in the comics. So if we do movie Thor, we can only take into account what we saw him do in the movies. But if we take comic book Thor, that just puts a lot more work on me to actually investigate. And again, it depends what, there's a lot of different versions. So we'll have to essentially just decide this is the version we're doing without all of this extended knowledge. But that's going to be the fun part, right? Is trying to define what makes them and what equivalent level are they in D&D, because then we're either going to have to work up to them or we get to work beyond them and figure out, well, from a D&D standpoint, if this is what they've gotten so far, what would be the next likely ability?
Right. No, I do like that. I really do like being able to like, you know, do that extrapolation of like what could they be, where could they get, where might we become if this is something that we want to do later. So I like it.
What's also going to be fun, it's going to be difficult, is trying to justify how that works in a D&D setting for leveling, like how they got to their power, without trying to do it chronologically if it's in their own backstory. Like if we choose a character that in the book it specifically shows how they got their powers, we'll have to be mindful that that's not necessarily how we have to make them get their powers in the D&D build. Because
right,
it may not make sense that in the, you know, maybe in their series they got a series of powers, but maybe power number 2 and power number 5 out of 10, maybe those were their most powerful abilities. Well, it wouldn't make much sense to give your character the most powerful ability at level 2.
Right.
Even though that's what happened in their lore. So that's the other fun part, is we're gonna, like, again, Thor didn't really like get powers one at a time. He's just had them. So for us to morph that into what makes sense for Thor to have gotten to that stage. That's the other challenge, is we have to kind of figure out what does that look like, because most of the people that we're gonna see, or most of the like pop culture builds that we're gonna do, I would say at least 50, if not 60% of them are gonna be those that like just have powers, or kind of came into powers and then just could do stuff, right? It's not really going to be the same way like a D&D logic where you could only do one thing for so long and then eventually you learn something else. That's not I mean, even with Spider-Man, you could go and buy the book and see what powers manifested first, but it wasn't like he had to adventure without wall climbing for a while. He basically like got wall climbing and then immediately got like his agility, and then learned he also had good sight, and then also learned that he had Spidey sense. It wasn't like he waited months or took a couple fights before Spidey sense appeared, right? So that's what we have to figure out. If we were going to do Spider-Man, when does it make sense in D&D terms to say get Spidey sense? And what is Spidey sense in D&D?
Yeah.
Right? Because we can't can't just build them and say that's what they do. We have to find the nearest equivalent, or at least try to find a justifiable equivalent and homebrew it into. You know what I mean? Like like that option.
Interesting.
So
it's gonna be so wild. It's gonna be so wild.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot.
I'm excited
of fun.
for it though.
I'm really interested in that. Oh, thank you. I didn't even see that. I was busy talking. Didn't even see you take care of that.
Oh yeah, you getting it. I do agree with Marty. Comic book Thor basically becomes omnipotent, and that is
absolutely
it's absolutely wild. Like I don't even think level 20 could do that. Like that's more like we ascended.
Well, and so makes an interesting point, but I think the issue with Hawkeye mostly is that he gets a lot of hate mainly due to, I think, the movies, for one, because he's poorly represented in the movies. And the Marvel movies escalated so quickly that it kind of immediately went from like real world problems to there's flying aliens.
Yes.
It very much escalated out of his realm and his expertise. But truth be told, yes, like for what he is and the types of problems that he would have to come up against, he's definitely like a force to be reckoned with. But there's an unfortunate aspect of the stories that have recently used him. They don't really represent his capabilities because they already have gone that next step.
I'll say, put Hawkeye in our world right now. He's a baller.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
He's a baller. He's going to smoke. He's going to be able to protect an entire city. Like, yes, heck yes. But against most any of these guys, like I'm like,
the stakes got raised too quickly in the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Because again, same thing happened. I feel like the same thing really happened with like Black Widow too. Like,
yeah, although she's supposed to have some sort of super serum, something part of her. But
it's like her skill sets. It wasn't that her skill sets are useless. It's just that they escalated the situation to where, like,
you need to be able to take care of like 40 people at once,
or the fact that you're not going to work against Loki. Like gods aren't going to fall for your type of manipulation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, again, unfortunate that some people just kind of had to get thrown to the wayside because it was more of the stakes are so high that we don't know. And it's also the writers not really appropriately knowing how to use their abilities and their powers, right? And how to implement them appropriately, because again, it is when you're trying to make the story that they told, how do you make it interesting that someone who doesn't do things that are big and flashy?
Yeah.
So you know, knowing the audience, that's it was a tough sell.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh yeah, Hawkeye being more of a neighborhood. I see. I've never followed Hawkeye in the comics, so I don't know entirely what his whole backstory is or what makes him truly unique. I just know that, again, kind of like, you know, many other like of the lower end, I would say lower end superheroes, as in, you know, not the unstoppable superheroes, but kind of like what Marty was saying, like the Spider-Mans, the neighborhood heroes, the ones that, you know, were just trying to do the best with the circumstances that they had. And I mean, almost like a Batman in the sense of they had one area and that was theirs, that they just dealt with their thing. Yeah. And if that was Hawkeye, I could totally get it. Because unfortunately, again, the movies made it more of a soldier, like PTSD thing.
That's why I always thought it was so strange of a choice for the Avengers. Like the Avengers, this like global defense team, this like we're taking on like the biggest of big threats, and I know maybe this just they wanted some diversity in there, and like, hey, the little guy can help too. Hey, you know, you don't have to be, you know, the Hulk to be helpful, and I get that, and I want to support that, but I mean, even Batman knows how he can help, right? Batman's not going to go out there and try and like lift the planet off of somebody. Batman's gonna do what Batman does, right? You know, and so I don't know, but it's I get it.
And that's the thing about creative freedom is like, you know, you have enough, you only have so much time to tell the story that you want to tell.
You got to do,
so,
that's fair.
What do? You do as much fan service as you can, but you kind of have to just take things and
I just watched this TikTok about this guy talking about the difference between fan service in like the comic book and movie world versus fan service in like the anime world, and how significantly different. 'Cause he was talking to somebody in like a very different field, and he said fan service, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" No, it was wild.
Well, and again, it's like fan service in some communities is like doing the bare minimum, and then other times fan service is being like, "Oh, you think we forgot? We got you." You know what I mean? It's like it's almost that level of that's true fan service. I remember Kevin Smith, the director Kevin Smith, had a great like anecdote about working about this exact thing when he was working with Bruce Willis, because he had grown up watching Bruce Willis and he finally got to direct him at one point in a movie. And so he was telling this story about how he wanted to ask Bruce Willis, like, "Hey, do you remember this part you played in this thing that I saw growing up?" Like, again, he was like basically asking him like, "Hey, 20 years ago when you did this part, do you remember this thing that you did for this character? Can you do that?" So kind of like admitting I was being that pompous director that was like, "I need you to do that thing that you can do." But like, he just talked about how Bruce Willis was like, "So you want me to just randomly do a face that I was able to do 20 years ago that you suddenly somehow remember from your childhood? You're telling me, Bruce Willis, what to do and how?" And so he, you know, did the whole like intimidation thing of like just get off the stage and let me do my thing, right? But he goes on to say, like, at the final like last clip, he says like at the, you know, right when he's rolling it and he does the clip, he says like he sees it and Bruce Willis actually does the thing for him. And then when they finally cut, Bruce Willis goes, "That was for you," and then he walks off the stage. And I'm like, that is fan service.
Wild.
Being able to do that whole thing of like, "Oh, you think I didn't know what you wanted? Like, I got you." That's, you know, doing like just saying the line you're famous for. You know, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger saying "I'll be back" isn't fan service. Like that's someone thinks that's fan service, but that's the cheap, low hanging fruit. You know what I mean? But being able to do like that call for a hardcore fan that like actually called you out and was like, "I remember this cool thing that you did. Are you still able to?" There's that part of you that's like, "How dare you?" But that part of you is like, "Of course I can." So I love that story because that's to me like that's what I look at when they do fan service is when they really call back to like what made it good in the first place, not just, hey, here's that line that you heard that one time.
Right.
Wait, boob physics are different. Wait, did I miss something in chat?
I'm actually looking. I don't know.
I am so confused. I just looked over and that's the first thing that I read was boob physics are different.
I mean, you're not wrong.
We didn't forget we were just building it up.
Wild.
Anyway, so oh yeah, that whole conversation was because pop culture builds is coming up most likely on the 20th,
yes.
if nobody else votes, because I think right now we're still stuck at 6 votes. So I'm pretty sure everyone that's voted has voted,
Right.
or everyone that will vote has voted. Yes, 6 votes in, 3 are for pop culture builds, and we already have the decision. So I will start making or doing my research. I've already kind of started, but I'll officially do the research to get those 3 categories in mind. And then I guess, yeah, the idea will be that we'll talk about the character that we're doing. We'll try to build out a profile, and then we'll build out all of their abilities based on the class and everything else. And yeah, we'll do our best to try and represent whatever we can as best we can, and then only hopefully have to homebrew things that just don't have a one-to-one equivalent.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
All right, but other than that, yeah, we don't have anything else coming up, so I guess yeah, okay, I think we've
Yes,
gone long
indeed.
enough. I think we can start with today's review. Marty, are you ready? You know, no stress.
Pop culture is such a good topic.
Oh yeah, it is. So many characters to choose from. Set one earlier for the quick build here and there. Mephisto. I know the name, but I can't.
Every
I
time
know
someone
that-
says Mephisto, I think Mysterio, but I'm wrong. But
No,
Mephisto, he's like this devil demon guy.
I know the name.
From-
I know I would know it once I saw it. Like if I know I would know it once I.
All I know is
I
he's
don't
in
know.
the Fortnite season right now, and everybody's talking about it. That's the only
Oh,
reason I know
gotcha.
anything about it.
Asmodeus. Literally just Asmodeus. All right, so let's get into it here. All right, so we have a new race or a new genus with
Yes.
3 sub races. So again, we're going to approach this with the idea that these are going to just come out of a supplemental. So we're going to see how available they are to plop into any particular storyline. Again, they're not necessarily intended to be that way, but we're going to try to approach it that way. And then we're also going to see, you know, from a D&D standpoint, you know, do they provide the same things that we would want, you know, from a race, right? This isn't a class. We shouldn't expect to get too much. But, you know, if you're an aquatic race, you would expect to have underwater breathing, right? If you come from dark places, you expect to get, you know, night or dark vision.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to be looking for is, you know, not breaking game, you know, give us everything. But outside of lore, are we getting something from choosing this race? Or is it just one of those, it sounds cool, but I'd rather choose another race because it actually gives me something.
Right.
That's that balance you want to make sure is everything can be cool.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't really give you an incentive and something else can do it
Actually
better.
help you. Yeah.
All right. So let us open this up. And here we are. So if I have this correctly, we have the Sahali. If I understand how to pronounce that, it's the S is its own.
Yeah.
It's its own iteration. So we have the Sahali from MArtyTheFearless, and this is going to be a reptilian genus. So the 3 subraces that we're going to be looking at are all it is it is Arabic. I was able to actually copy and paste that into the title today, so that was kind of cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. So the Sahali are all reptilian in nature. So this is going to be the opportunity to add a new reptilian race. And with that 3 subraces, if you don't like, because I think right now you have lizard folk, you have
There's lizard
dragonborn, and I think I wanted merfolk.
So there's
It's not really
theoretically
lizard,
the
but-
Shanti. You can technically be them.
Right.
kind of like
And-
snake-like people.
Okay, they are the snake ones, right?
Yes.
They're the actual snake ones. So yeah, there's only a handful that you can really be like reptilian wise.
Yeah.
So unless you homebrew like basically using one of those, but say you're gecko like looking, right? But
Right.
It's kind of nice to see a.
And
new
there have
approach
been
to it.
some other people who have tried to do other ones like that. In fact, I think we have some other. I think we have like one called the Chameleon coming up from possibly Desmar, I believe.
That's fascinating. Marty shares the Yuntai, the turtle, and lizard folk are the big three.
Oh,
reptilian.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. So let's check out the first one. I'm probably going to butcher all of these names, so work with me here.
We'll do what we can.
It's been a long time since I've spoken Arabic, so it's been over 10 years. So I probably have no memory whatsoever of how to properly pronounce things.
Have heard some other people speak it to me, and that's about it.
So the Wazgatan are a species that stick deep in the mountainous regions surrounding the wastes. Now, I'm assuming things like that, like the wastes, I'm assuming are Marty's setting. Because he did mention that these are also being built for their setting.
Interesting.
So I think that's what's happening. The wastes sound like something that, and Marty can correct me if I'm wrong, but the wastes sound more like what they have specifically. But you could probably consider that like the wastelands. Like the not so savory, not as hospitable to most.
That's
travelers.
kind of what I was thinking. It's just like
Desert surrounding mountains. Okay, so wastelands, deserts around mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. They are expert climbers and build their villages deep in the cracks and crevices of mountains. Okay, so mountains right outside of deserts. They're known for their incredibly thick tails, and when attacked, they can be used to block and fall off, allowing them to escape, kind of like a gecko. Okay,
Yes.
so that's right there. Right off the bat, I'm already happy because it's exactly what I wanted to see. Give me a reason to take this, not just for lore purposes, not just because that's where I want to be from, but like that right there, being able to use my tail, knowing that my tail is now a weapon, is now a shield, and I can do this. That's kind of cool. I don't know what that's going to be useful for in game, but I'm really curious to find out.
Okay. I'm here for it.
It would be really interesting to find out if that could be used to feed your party if they're starving. Just like, don't worry, I'll grow it back. Just take my tail. Just cook that up.
Wild.
It's fine.
Grill it up, man.
Ability
miss
score increase.
Posture
check. All right, thank you. Thank you, Lucky. Ability score increase. So your dexterity score is increased by 2. Your charisma score is increased by 1. Interesting. Okay, a dexterity already totally understand. I'm really curious where the charisma score. If I can just yeah. Feel free to share if you have a specific reason, Marty, or if it's just more of what you balance-wise what wanted. But I'm trying to think of like what would be your instinct of that for a race having a charisma bonus. I'm thinking like because it's like a gecko, because it's reptilian in nature. This one's more like gecko-y. So is it because of like the not chameleon-like nature, but again, geckos can also like blend into their surroundings?
I would say, if anything, it would be because I know that some geckos can be very colorful, right? And so maybe it's just that they look pretty or something. They just have an alluring.
When I think of
appearance.
gecko, if I'm thinking of the right one, the geckos are the ones with the completely independent eyes, right?
Those are chameleons, I think.
Oh, chameleons that have the completely
on either side. Geckos look more like slimy lizards.
Oh, that's
like
right.
Small slimy lizards.
Okay, they're the smaller ones. That's right. Okay. So I guess those are pretty like charismatic. Like they look very animated.
Cutesy, like
okay. I guess I can get that.
They imagine a gecko with anime eyes, just look those giant, like huge pupils that are just staring. That would be
okay. No, okay. I get that. Yeah. Now that I'm realizing, yeah. So yeah, that's I was thinking chameleon. So gecko being the small. Oh yeah, they're the ones with the big old feet with the sticky feet.
Yeah, they usually have like the 3 little,
which makes sense for being able to climb. I mean, even at that point, saying that they have the equivalent of spider climb, because that would make sense, right? Having the equivalent of spider climb. Due to their tribes being very friendly and kind to travelers, and their own kind, having a very nice and unassuming personality. Okay, so very much what you see when you see a gecko. It's very welcoming, very non-assuming, very non-threatening. Okay. I get that. Age. The Wazgatan reach maturity by age 4 and lives to 30 years old.
Short lifespans.
I think that might be the shortest that I know of for a playable race.
I think so.
I don't think I've ever seen a playable race that has that short of a lifespan.
I can look through, but then again, you know, if you could theoretically get to level 20 in, you know, who knows how long, and find something to prolong your life. You know, there's plenty of things that are like that.
I mean, that's
be the
true.
Oldest gecko.
Alignment, they are lawful good by nature, following the rules of their tribes and attempting to help travelers lost in the mountains. I like that. Okay, so lawful good by nature doesn't necessarily mean that they're required to, but you would generally expect them to be lawful good, or sort of variation. What's going on, Hecate? Let's see, their size. Oh, they are small. Nice. And actually, like, we don't get very small.
We don't get very many small races.
To be fair, we don't get very many like large playable races either, right?
That's true. I really wish, first of all, I have no idea why centaurs are not large. Like
I mean, they should take up at least 2 squares.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
but then again, horses don't. A standard
don't
horse,
they?
I don't think a horse takes up 2 squares. I think a horse still takes up 1 square.
If it, according to 5th edition rules, like I'm gonna do a draft horse. Draft.
Ooh, Marty says that they do have.
They are a large beast.
They are large.
They are large.
Then
beast.
centaur should be large.
Exactly.
100% centaur should be large. If you're the same size as the horse, yeah.
Get the front door out of here.
We'll definitely send them our way, Marty. I'm interested in small and large races.
Oh heck yeah.
All right. So you stand 3 feet tall. That's how small you are. 3 feet.
Wild.
Wait, would that not count as tiny?
I don't think so.
Well, I guess if the average is 6 foot and you use reduce, you go up to half, which would be 3, and then you'd still be small. So yeah, you'd probably have to go 1 more. So anything probably under like, yeah, so maybe 1.5 feet to under would be tiny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could see that.
Tiny is 1 to 2 feet. Okay, yeah. My
Okay.
math was right. Hey.
Very nice. Very nice.
Your speed is 30 feet. Wrong end. When you take damage that would reduce your hit points to 0, you may instead lose your tail. Oh, that's how it works. If you do, you instead drop to 1 hit point. Your tail will grow back in 1 week, or if the lesser restoration spell is used on you. Okay. Oh, hey, you have spider climb. I got ahead of myself. Spider climb. You can climb difficult surfaces, including upside down on ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. However, your hands must be free to do so. So no gloves and all of that. Okay, so
also you have to be doing it on all 4s. So traditionally, spider climb is a situation where you can just walk with your feet, and your hands are free, and you can do stuff.
One you have to also be using.
So
your
I
hands.
kind of like that begin, because yes, it allows you to get up there,
but you still have to work like a gecko. You still
exactly.
I love that. I love
that's
that
super cool.
that you have to walk on all 4s.
Especially because you
dwarves
get
are 4 feet and still consired a medium character. That is true.
Yes,
that is absolutely true. Okay. Okay, so I really do like the spider climb alteration. That is beautiful. I wouldn't mind, although I'm not saying it needs any changes. I wouldn't mind seeing an alteration to the speed.
Oh, like giving him increased speed,
or even reduced. For being tiny, you don't get to travel as far with the same effort. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So I wouldn't mind whether that's 35, 40. I could understand it because it's a gecko, but because of the size, I wouldn't mind if it was 25. I wouldn't want anything less than 25. I feel like that would be
weird,
too much of a detriment.
But because you said that, that's kind of why I get it being at 30. Is because like you're a little skittery dude, but so you're a lot smaller, and so it kind of evens out to the 30 feet. But
that's why I'm not worried about like big changes. Like anywhere from 25 to 35, I would be okay with. Just a small adjustment just to give it
a little bit more,
that little extra, but it doesn't need it. You're right. It balances out, but I think because all of the other ones are so subtle, like the other changes you get are subtle, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea. But normally races don't necessarily need to give you that much. So just an option. It's more of an option. If you wanted to adjust the speed, I would only do it by 5.
Okay.
Down 5 or up 5, both make sense.
Okay.
Otherwise, no. I think the alteration to spider climb is my favorite thing. Like, you're absolutely right. Having to do it on all 4s. I might change the verbiage. Is however, your hands must be free to do so because you must climb on all 4s.
Okay. Just to specify.
That would be my only thing, Marty, is just add right here this little extra. Your hands must be free to do so because you must be on all fours in order to do this. Or if you wanted to be able to make sure there's no confusion because people could still attack or something, you must have 3 points of contact at all times. So I could still climb, and then I could take one hand off to grab a sword or grab my hand crossbow. Because you don't want to limit them to being able to attack or do something.
Right.
But if you're trying to indicate that you need to crawl on all fours, I would just add verbiage.
I might even say something like, if you're standing still, like, I'll let you use your hands. But if you're going to move, you got to put it away and move on all fours.
So yeah, that would be my thing.
You know what I'm saying?
Is just add a slight little bit of verbiage here that just indicates, do you need more than 2 points of contact to be still and only 4 points when you're crawling? Or do you need them to literally be like, you can only have one hand free? I would just, confirm that, because
clarify
that way, because right now we were able to infer that it says your hands must be free, but we know players are going to argue what that means.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, oh, so it only matters if I'm only crawling by my hands. So what about my feet, right? Like you don't want that. So you can even say your hands and feet must be free. That would add an extra complication to it. But depending upon how you want to do that, I would just maybe just alter or add verbiage that just helps clarify what your intent is. I would say the 3 points of contact to hold yourself in place, 4 to move.
Okay.
So, yeah. And if that's all the case,
there it is.
So you can climb difficult surfaces, include upside down on ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. However, your hands must be free. Your hands and feet must be free to do so because it requires 3 points of contact to stay still and 4 points to move. That's all you have to say, and there's no ambiguity, because then that basically tells everybody you have one hand to do an action with. So if you're a spellcaster, it depends on your. Oh, that's actually a good question. Does Somatical take both hands or not? Should Somatical take both hands? Because that's something that spells should indicate, actually. Somatical should actually be S1 and S2. I think Somatical should actually indicate whether it's single-handed or two-handed. And the higher the level of the spell, or anything after 5th level, Somatical is two-handed. Maybe that should just be a house rule. Any 5th level or higher spell requires 2 hands during Somatical. I think that should be a valid rule.
Interesting.
Because it makes sense, right? Like the idea of like some spells could just be a little hand gesture, but you would think the higher level spells like actually require like both hands. Interesting idea, y'all. But yeah, okay. So spider climb, I think it's great. I do like the 3 hands needed to stabilize yourself. Just update that verbiage. Hey, Lepa, 4:50 a.m. What is up? Oh, I guess that would be you. All right.
Wild.
The only other thing. Okay, so yeah, so ability score increase. I like it. I think dexterity and charisma makes sense. Age is very interesting, but no problems. Alignment, I think that's great. Size, I think that's great. Speed, it totally works. I wouldn't mind an alter it. If you wanted to do an option to alter it, I would only suggest doing it by 5. Spider climb with that alteration, I absolutely love. I think my only other suggestion here is wrong end. And I know that this suggestion is going to actually dip outside the standard, because I think already we've given enough for a race. I think this race already gives plenty, and it doesn't need to give anything more. So take that with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Is everything is great. This next comment is ignoring everything else. Put it that way. Ignore all of it and let's just look at wrong end. And this is where this comment comes from. When you take damage, that would reduce you to 0 hit points. You instead lose your tail. If you do, you drop to 1 hit point. Your tail will grow back in 1 week. Less restoration, blah, blah, blah. I do like that as a mechanic. Part of me is like, it's really harsh to drop to 1 and only lose your tail. Like there's part of me that wants like the tail to be able to take more damage than you could, in a sense. Like you could push a certain amount of damage into your tail, and once it's taken so much damage, you lose it. So almost like your tail acts as temporary hit points.
Interesting.
So part of my mind wants to do that, but that's complicated. That's realistically complicated to always basically be carrying a temp, but at the same time kind of cool, right? Like think about that. You are this race, and your tail, depending on how old you are, your tail is like your age plus 2 or your age times 2 in temporary hit points.
Interesting.
So
I mean,
again,
especially because it wouldn't get that big.
Well, because if you start at if you start at 5, 5 years old, you have 10, temporary HP. And the whole point is whenever you want, you can put any incoming damage into your tail. But it can't be like any normal amount. It has to be all or nothing. But once your tail gets that much damage, it comes off. So if you're like at 10 hit points and about to die, you could say, I put the next 10 hit points into my tail first. And then it would divert that from you. So that was one idea that I had, but it kind of gets complicated. But it's still kind of cool, right? It just gives you this opportunity to basically have like a built-in shield that you just get to defer damage to. Marty likes the idea with your proficiency bonus times 2 for the hit points. Oh, I like that. Instead, take your proficiency bonus, multiply that by 2. And that's how much your tail has. So, because I like the idea that in that particular case, again, at any point, you just defer damage. It's not taking damage. It's deferred. So it's like temporary, but you don't, because you know how normally temporary HP you take first?
Yeah.
This in the case is you get to choose when that temp HP is done. Right? You get to choose when your tail is the target. But anyway, second to that, the one I would, the ability that I really wanted to suggest here, that was just a secondary to go on with it, to go along with it. But what I would like to see here is when reduced to 0, to 0, you may lose your tail and drop to 1 instead. I do like the tail growing back in a week. All of that's great. I wouldn't even mind the tail growing back with a dice roll. But what I want to see here is if you do instead drop to 1 hit point and you get to take the dash action without opportunity attack. That's the only addition I would like to see, regardless of the tail hit points. When this triggers, because again, I think of like a lizard, right? The whole point is you lose your tail to run away. What I would like to see added on is regardless of the hit points, when you do lose the tail, when you are reduced to 1 hit point and you lost your tail, the ability to take a free dash action and not provoke opportunity would be exactly what a gecko would want to do.
I would 100% charge the reaction for that, but I love that.
Totally fine. Yeah, I would totally fine. But I think that would be what I would want. And now again, we're already talking about adding a lot for a race. Like, this is already adding a lot. But again, ignoring everything else, just looking at if I had a tail and it got chopped off, the whole point of a lizard doing that is to run away. So not giving them that extra.
I'll say this. I very much agree. I don't necessarily think it's a lot. Like, I wouldn't mind including that in there with everything else that's there.
Or even not a free dash action, but when you lose your tail, the next move you make does not provoke opportunity attack. So if you still have a dash action, you can. Something along the lines of basically it should help you get away from the situation, not just not die.
But I will also say, like, I really like the idea of your tail having some sort of ability itself that you lose whenever wrong end occurs.
Well, it does say that didn't it say that
in the description,
the incredibly thick tails, that when attacked can be used to block off. For some reason I thought that said you can be used to attack. I wouldn't mind having a tail attack for sure. But what were you saying is having?
But if like, even if it wasn't an attack, like, I like the idea of like maybe I can grab something from 10 feet away with my tail or something like that. I don't
use it as a tool. I mean, being a gecko, it's kind of hard because geckos don't use their tails like that. So you kind of want to be fresh to the thing. But again, this is where the player gets to be creative, because if you have a situation where the players are, let's say, traveling and ran out of rations, you could justifiably say that, or let's say you lose it in the middle of a battle and then you win the battle. Justifiably, could you not grab your tail and be like, feast up, everybody, like, we won? Like, narratively speaking, players could get that creative. You don't need to write that in that it acts as food.
What's that show on Netflix, that anime, Delicious in Dungeon, where they're diving in this dungeon, and like literally everything that they kill, they end up finding some way to cook it and eat it. and some of the stuff
That's
is like
hilarious.
really, really wild, but it's pretty hilarious. So that's like, oh well, you lost a tail. Well, anybody hungry?
Geckos store a lot of fat in their tail, so it's really thick. Yeah, so I agree, Marty. Leave that to the player and DM too. Like, leave the player to decide that that's a thing that they want to do. Lose their tail for a week to try that, right? That's
Right.
definitely, I think, an interaction that doesn't need to be put on paper. So yeah. So other than that, right? Like the ability scores, I think are spot on. You know,
I like that as well.
2 to dexterity, 1 to charisma, nothing wrong. Age is totally fine. I don't see anything wrong with it. Alignment is great. Size, great. Speed, fine. Spider climb, absolutely perfect. Just update the verbiage. And then wrong end, you kind of have a lot of different options there. I don't think anybody would be upset if you did something like let your tail have optional HP or give you an extra dash action to get away when it loses. Like, I don't think that would cause this race to feel overpowered.
Yes.
I think it would just really make it stand out and be unique.
I'll also say this, and this is just from my perspective, it not having that would not deter me from choosing this race.
Exactly. It's not missing it,
Yes.
but it would not feel bad to have it.
Very much so.
There
Agreed.
you go. No, absolutely. Because as it is, this is very intriguing. And just in general, having a extra, you know, death blow, right? Having someone get your final blow and then
Yeah.
you survive it, totally fine.
I mean,
Like-
half orcs get that. They're
Oh, the reckless endurance, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like,
It's the same thing, except theirs
as-
is just more innate.
As is, I am not upset with it. I would, other than suggesting the added verbiage, I'm not gonna, there's nothing I can really suggest to change
No.
to make it better
No doubt.
or to make it work. It works as is, but there are some options that you have to build on. All right, cool. So that's it'd be really chewy, but it probably wouldn't taste too horrible. Like, I don't know. It really depends on what they ate all the time. Like,
I'm
you know what I
telling
mean? You
you.
would think it depends on the appetite of the player.
Delicious in dungeon would make it sound fabulous. They'd find a way.
And Soul says that they actually used the meals from that show in their campaign at one point.
Are you for real? Fire. Absolutely fire. That's way cool.
All right, so that was our gecko. All right, so now we have 2 more. So let's move on to the Timsa. I'm assuming that's also an individual S. So the Timsa could be the pronunciation.
Timsa.
All right, the Timsa are seen through Kemet. Okay, so Kemet, I believe, is Marty's setting.
Okay.
Or a
Is it
like
a
continent or
deity?
something. Most of their history is known to the common folk. They very much ebb and flow like the Damiet River. So again, I think this is setting specific, but if you guys, you know, they came, you know,
You can
basically
change the
been
name
here
of the
a
river if you
while.
really want to.
Yeah, they've been here a while. Everyone
Yeah.
knows about them. You'll find them in most settlements, selling their wares in the city's bazaar. So they're common. Possibly in taverns, drinking and regaling the tales from their homelands further up the river, selling their services as merchants or guards. Ooh, they're crocodilian. Okay.
Oh,
Because my first thought was like, I'm starting to think like he said, like, you know, they're in you know, every town and in the markets. I was like, immediately went to Skyrim, thinking of like all of
Oh,
the Dragonborn,
yeah.
like, you know, merchants. That's where my mind went. I had the living armor meals in it. Oh, do you know about the living armor meals
no.
from the episode from the anime? The living armor.
Oh, the living. The like the little oyster things.
I don't know. That's all Soul said was the living armor meals.
The living armor. Oh, wild. Oh, wild. If that's really what that is, because there was this insane living armor that was really just a
Ooh.
bunch of like muscles like holding this armor together, and they like plucked them out and.
So we've been doing, you know, the critical cocktails for stuff, you know, for like D&D drinks and stuff like that. So Haleba has a good idea about doing a cookbook for like lore based stuff.
That
Like
would
I
be
know
kinda
there
cool.
are D&D like cookbooks, but I wouldn't mind thinking of them, thinking of like our own.
Okay.
All right, so I'm really curious about this one. The crocodilian race sounds fascinating. All right, so ability score increases, your dexterity score increases by 2, and intelligence score increases by 1. right off the bat, not what I was expecting.
Also, not what I was expecting.
I'm gonna reserve any more judgment until later, but that's not the. I mean, intelligence. I know that crocodiles aren't necessarily dumb, so that's not necessarily quite unsuspecting. But I would personally, if I was thinking about cognitively for a crocodile, I would have assumed wisdom, more of like situational awareness,
Interesting.
not
Fair enough.
premeditated thought experiment, more of like how you know how they like flip you is more wisdom, not intelligence, to like drown you by like flipping you upside down in the water. Like I would see that as
It's
wisdom.
more of an instinctual reaction more than a calculated move. I
Marty says
get
the
that.
intelligence score was more for a balanced standpoint, but wisdom could also work. So yeah, my instinct was like wisdom over intelligence, but dexterity was not.
Honestly, I would think strength over dexterity traditionally.
My first thought was that, but then if you really think about what they are all about, strength maybe in their jaw, but only in their jaw. The rest of them move quickly through the water. You know, being reptilian, dexterity is kind of the standard. So I'm actually not upset with dexterity. Was
you know what?
Originally
That's fair enough. I can see that, because a lot of what you're doing is, yes, you're holding tight, but you're also.
But my mind then immediately realizes that the strength we were thinking of isn't so much like the physical strength outside of like the jaw, but I think what we were thinking of technically translates better into constitution. For like, because we were thinking the strength, like the hardiness, like, you know, those things could take a beating.
Yes.
So,
well,
because I don't think of them like holding me down. I think of them biting me or just literally just take a beating and still coming at you.
Yeah.
So when I think of that strength, I think of that's more constitution. So that's another alternative for any DMs out there that would want to use this. I could see if the build made sense to go constitution, that's fine. But dexterity as a reptilian still makes sense. I'm not going to be upset with that.
That's fair.
I would maybe individually myself, I might argue that in wisdom should beat out intelligence, but there's nothing wrong with intelligence. You know what I mean? It's not like it doesn't make sense. I just may not choose it myself. The age for these are normally reach maturity at age 16, and they can live up to 150 years. So kind of almost like a modified elf, like a much lower version.
Just a little bit more than human lifespan ish.
They're diverse species, so their alignments. Okay, so their alignments normally sit within lawful. So there's some version of lawful typically, but by the way I read this, as they say, they're very diverse species. That means that there's no limitations.
Right.
It can be anything, but typically you would choose one of the three lawfuls.
Yeah. A lot of the times that will be
or
the
at least
norm.
that tells me that player can choose any alignment. DM should run primarily lawful alignments when using this as NPCs.
Yeah.
That's what that tells me.
Yes.
And I actually, honestly, that's actually a great way to do that. Putting something in there that basically tells the player you can be whatever you want, but guides the DM into basically being like, look, don't use these to like make a horde of, you know, angry ones. Basically realizing that if they aren't good, they could or lawful, they could probably be OP. I kind of like that nudge actually, because you don't see that a lot. You don't usually see that kind of verbiage that is for both player and DM.
Yeah.
And I may be wrong here in that, but that's how I read that kind of verbiage.
No, and so honestly, that's in a lot of races, and I hadn't actually thought of it through that lens, but I do believe that regardless of if that's the lens that was intended, I feel like that makes a lot of sense and can be very helpful. So I honestly think that's a really good place to start when it comes to looking at what that is, because obviously you can be whatever you want. You could find a way for your character to be, you know, chaotic or whatever.
If I wanted to, as a DM, to have my BBEG this, I could have them, you know, chaotic evil if I want.
Sure.
But again, the way that I would normally read that is being a diverse species means that there's, you know, there's all types, and that speaks to the player.
Yes.
Of build what you want. But when I hear normally, that tells me, oh, DM, if you're going to make a society, if you're going to make a group of these, if these are going to be things you can run into, keep them standard lawful and only once in a while deviate. You know what I mean? I like that kind of stuff. Because it reminds me of how, I think the reason why I like it the most is it reminds me a lot of how second edition wrote its books. I've pointed this out whenever we read the second edition player's handbook, right? Is the verbiage it uses is sometimes vague, but it's vague with a direction,
with a purpose.
Like, hey, I'm not going to get you to the end goal. I'm not going to get you to the end point, but in my vagueness, I'm definitely pointing you in the right direction. You just have to finish, right? It's not vague as in you have no idea what's going on. It's vague as in
you have a lot of options.
You know where to go, but you have to walk the rest of the way. Figure it out, right? Like I like that kind of stuff. So when I read this stuff, it just gives me those kind of vibes. Let's see. So size, we're back to medium, normally standing between 4 and 5 feet tall, which is interesting. I would have expected like for a crocodile to be like maybe even taller, because I know that they can get huge.
Now,
can't crocodile get like 15 feet?
Maybe they're saying that's all in the tail, and the tail doesn't add to your height. So when you're lightweight, if you're bipedal and if you're standing upright, your tail is going to be behind you.
Nah, that's fair. Technically.
So it might just be, and again,
but still, I still expect it to be like, again, even if the tail is considered equal length of the body. I mean, I thought crocodiles could be up to like 15 feet, so I would still think like a 7 foot would make sense as a max. But again, I honestly, I'm very terrible at knowing the difference between alligators and crocodiles.
Same.
Like if I could tell the difference in a
like
picture, but that's about it. But I couldn't tell you the differences. I just know that there's an obvious difference when you see them, but I don't know anything about their characteristics.
Yeah.
So, what is going on in chat? They are speedy boys on land. I have seen them run. They are absolute terrifying, which is why I'm not upset about the dexterity, right? I would have considered constitution as an option, but dexterity absolutely makes sense. Which is also surprising that your speed is still only 30. I could definitely have seen this be given 40.
Given 30 or 40?
Yeah, because seriously, the way that they are on land is fucking terrifying. And even in water, these things are terrifying. So I wouldn't be, I'm actually kind of surprised you didn't put the speed up to 40. And again, size, we haven't even gotten to speed yet. Besides, it depends on what you think of, let's see. So if we base them off of salt waters, they'd be towards 15 to 18 for sure. So saltwater crocs are the larger ones. So freshwater,
okay.
I guess, are the smaller ones. Alligators are bigger than crocodiles. Oh, thank you. Okay. So alligators are probably so freshwater alligators are probably the ones that I'm thinking of, are just the ones that are just absolutely huge. Saltwater crocs tend to get bigger, but I guess if you think of so is it that which ones end up in pools more often than not throughout, like when you see them in like someone's backyard pool, are those typical? Because those are the ones that I think of are always smaller.
People in Florida.
But I mean, those are always smaller, right? When I think of the ones that end up in pools, like someone's backyard, those are usually be the smaller ones. So I wonder if those are the freshwater crocs.
Okay.
And the saltwater ones are like the ones you get in the bayou, when the saltwater floods in, and those are the ones that could basically be like the size of your boat. Because that would make sense. Okay, that might. I may be talking out my ass here, but I'm trying to piece together a bunch of random shit that I've heard. So what chat's talking about. I could see the speed increase. I don't see too many races with speed increases, which is why I didn't do it. And yeah, that is true too. I mean, we've talked a lot about this where we aren't 100% in agreement with how Wizards of the Coast has. I don't even think it's their fault, but we're not in 100% agreement that when people make things, that Wizards of the Coast is the absolute best template to go off of.
Right.
Especially when it comes to like subclasses. So yeah, feel free in that particular case. I know a lot of races don't give you that increase, but that is one of those things where a race absolutely should alter speed, depending on the type of race, right? Like if you're like a Khajiit, why wouldn't that make you faster? Or why wouldn't a Khajiit mean you could jump higher? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me why some races literally shouldn't come with those kind of physical feats. So I get why you held off, but I would be okay if that was 40 feet. Just knowing that the crocodile has that kind of speed. I'm totally cool with that. You grew up with a snake, or not, the town you grew up in had a snake farm and a few alligators. That's cool.
Wild.
Like, I mean, we have a zoo, but like that's about it. Like,
right? We got a snake farm.
Yeah, trying to keep it more to their template, and that's what most people do. We're big advocates of breaking the templates just because what they did when they did it made sense, like in those situations. but a lot of the times
I will say
those templates aren't really the best for all scenarios.
And I do get that, and I feel like there's something to be said for deviating, but I also understand why people keep to it, especially if they're looking for shareability, right? If they're looking for something that is going to be able to fit into the way that they've balanced it so far, then you know, going too far outside of that could tip the scales in one way or the other. But so I totally get the desire to go that direction, but you know, again, if you feel inspired to, if you feel, you know, you can find a way to present it differently, I think that it's totally worth pursuing, doing something unique, doing something that hasn't been done before. So I'm super here for that.
Interesting. So the snake farm was government sponsored because there wasn't enough people who had poisonous snakes pets, and someone needed to create the antidotes. Okay, so it was a snake farm for antidote generation.
Oh, wild.
Which is awesome. Okay,
that's wild.
That's dope.
I mean, all right, bet.
All right, so I actually really like these next two abilities. So I'm going to skip the next one and go to the last one because I feel like it makes sense to. It should have been listed first because it goes right after speed.
Okay.
Because it goes along with speed, so it should have been. So it's called One with the River, and you have a swim speed equal to your movement speed. So I would have put that right after speed.
Okay.
It's not I don't think it's a slide on anyone. Just personally, I just would have said speed 30. Then the first ability is your swim speed is your equal, and with that. Swim speed equal to your movement speed, 100%. I'd also give you 40 feet.
Oh yeah,
like 100%. That would even mean more that I want to see 40 feet as my movement speed, because in the water I should definitely be.
You should be a freaking tiger. Yeah.
So, there's 3 of them. I think one's on the next page. Yes, we do have one more. Yeah, I would. I just meant I'm skipping one. As in, I meant. Oh, that's what you meant. Okay, yes, there is another one. So thank you. But yeah, so One with the River, I 100% agree. Swim speed is equal to walk speed. It makes me even want this at 40 even more.
Yeah.
And then we have One with Nature. You can attempt to hide even when you were only lightly obscured by foliage, water, sandstorms, or other natural phenomenon. I kind of like the addition of sandstorms as a natural phenomenon to give people an idea of what that actually means.
Right.
But that is actually brilliant. You have you basically can attempt to hide even when you're only lightly obscured.
It's basically what the wood elves get.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I think it's absolutely great, especially with the water, because that's just.
And I like that with this creature, because you know they in those environments they would be so easy for them to just like blend in with the background, or like, you know, their scaly skin would easily look like dried desert dirt or whatever.
He took it from the wood elves and just added a little extra.
Right.
That's awesome. No, I have no problem with that. That makes sense for a croc folk. Yeah, what's wrong with people? I mean, you know, who screams when you find a 15-foot anaconda in a playground? Like, I mean, what kind of people would scream over that? Like, it's just like, isn't that just shish, shoo, shoo, shoo. It's fine. It's just a giant snake. Like, it's no big deal. I mean, they're only trying to get antidotes for it. I mean, it's fine.
It's fine. They're just gonna hug you real good.
Just very big hug. That's all they want. They just want the biggest hug. All right, so claws. Your fingers end in sharp claws. You can replace one of your attacks with your claws. They can use dexterity or strength and deal 1d4 plus your strength or dexterity slashing damage.
I will say this. I think I would have liked this if it were a bite.
I was gonna say the same thing. But then again, crocs do have claws.
That's
at the
true.
Same time.
But I would say.
But then again, especially because depending upon how you look, if you're more humanoid, but if you do have a croc face, I would have also liked to see a bite.
Because I mean, think about like the Dragonborn snout. That's kind of what I'm envisioning. You know, like you've got this more elongated, a whole bunch of rows of teeth.
Marty says they had that typed and ready to go. I did the claws only because other races have bites. So he was typing that as we made that comment.
That's funny.
So honestly, I wouldn't have minded both. There's no reason why I would have minded claws at 1d4 plus strength and a bite. But if you wanted to be different about your bite, instead of it being a bite attack, because you're absolutely right. Plenty of races do a bite attack, right?
Sure.
Oh my God, Hoilepa, stop getting ahead of me.
Yeah.
Damn it, you're already catching. I would have liked this. Give me the claws. But instead of a regular bite, God damn it, you people. Let me get to my point before you put it in chat. Yes, that is exactly what I was trying to get to. What I would have done is let the claws be, and instead of the bite attack be a bite attack, let the bite basically be, bite is basically advantage on grapple.
Oh, okay.
So your bite attack is essentially a grapple attack, but with advantage. And then if you get it, because the mindset that I was going for that Hoilepa had already talked about was the crocodile death roll. So if you're in water and you could grapple them and then you could submerge them.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have done, is instead of just doing a standard, bite attack ever, because other races do have bite attacks because they're, those races make sense because they bite to do harm. Crocodiles usually don't bite necessarily to do harm.
They bite to hold on.
They bite to hold on.
Yeah.
So I would have, that's the total direction I would have been totally okay with. Let me have claws at 1d4, because who doesn't mind natural weapons? It's not like it's that big of a deal. 1d4, no big deal. But a bite grapple? Oh, now I'm interested.
Especially because you got advantage every single time. When you have a grappled opponent, you have advantage. Do you? I swear you do.
Well, and then on top of that, like some people have the ruling, like you can attack while they're grappled, and then at this point, if you're grappled by your mouth, you have free arm to claw at them. Then if you take this with a class of monk,
bro,
I'm just saying, dude, the bite grapple, man, bite grapple, it should be a thing, and I'm okay with it.
Heck yes.
But everyone in chat beat me to it, so I couldn't be all original, because I thought I was being clever, and then chat's like, "Oh, are you thinking this?" But yeah, I am.
Yep.
Why you gotta?
That's the thing.
Hecate's been working on climate type monsters. What would y'all like to see them all at once or by climate? Probably we'll do one at a time. We'll
review them one at a time, but send them all in.
Send them all in, and then Kage can figure out how to dice them all up. Marty, love the idea. Gonna 100% add that. Okay, yes. The bite grapple, I would not be upset with, because again, no one minds having claws because claws are not that OP. But a bite grapple for this particular race sets you apart, not only because it gives you a fighting style built in, right? Grappling is a kind of a built-in fighting style, but it sets you apart from the bite attack. No one else has a bite attack that's designed to... Wait, no, there is, I think, one creature that bites and doesn't let go. I think there's one monster that has specifically their bite attack is also meant to not let go. And I don't remember which one it is.
I know that one of my favorite wild shapes, the giant anaconda, whatever. There's a giant snake where you can wrap up your opponent and but that's the only one that I'm super familiar with.
Or something. There was a monster I remember reading up on where they had a bite attack, but they had the ability to bite and then clench or just hold on. So it essentially just made it to the person who was immobile, so they couldn't move.
Interesting.
And they would take damage if they failed to try to release themselves. They would take extra damage, and then the next round they could bite down harder and do the same damage but still hold on to them. It was a very interesting mechanic. I don't remember what edition it was. It may have been a 2nd or 3rd edition monster, but it was really cool. So
wild.
I'm all about the idea of setting yourself up for that. Marty's already added it to the talk. Awesome.
Wild. Awesome.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Glad that we could help that. And then doesn't matter if the idea is common if the idea is still awesome. Exactly. There's been so many times I thought I've come up with something, I'll just be sitting there be like, oh my God, that's such a great idea. And then I'll go look it up and realize someone else came up with it. Be like, but you know what? I still came up with it myself. I didn't read about it. I just wasn't
it popped into my brain too.
Okay, so we are now on the final one, the McCrin. Okay, I think so. I may be wrong on that.
No, I like that. The McCrin
are seen as fantastic warriors and strong adversaries. Okay, so we've got the peaceful, just chill, peaceful, the guides to help you across the mountain. Okay. We've got the guards, mercenaries. We've got the protectors. And now we've got the warriors, right? So we have so we're getting that the inner circle, the inner city, the nice ones, they want to help you out, they want to show you around. The ones that want to protect those from the inner city, so you get that outer ring, they're the defensive force. And then you got the ring outside of that, which is the force that would like do something about it.
Right.
Like they're not waiting.
Yes.
Their natural hides offer protection against attacks. The Mirquin are a quiet and kind people, using their strength not to harm the innocent, but to help them. Their lifestyle finds them melding with the populace in cities, having no real place to call their homeland. These are bearded dragons or thorny lizards.
Okay.
So
very nice.
I could see. So again, not assuming that assuming that these are we're taking this from the point of view of these are like in a supplemental and these are new races added. I would imagine anyone could easily integrate this lore into their setting, and a fun way to do that, or at least probably more maybe fun, but maybe even considered cliche way to do that, would be to have these particular races, like this particular race, the Mirquin, be confused with Dragonborn.
Okay.
So there, you could easily integrate this where they're so easily integratable, but wherever Dragonborn are, maybe there's always like a contention of no, we're not them, and not necessarily like an issue with it, but either a common misconception could be developed, or if you have areas where Dragonborn aren't allowed, maybe these guys also have a problem because they're often confused. So I could really see a lot of like intricate diplomacy
I do like that.
And role play with the idea that a bearded dragon or a thorny lizard humanoid could easily be mistaken for a standard Dragonborn.
Yeah.
And that could be also good role play. Like you meet a Dragonborn and they think that you're one of their kind, and that could be a whole random mishap.
you can put it into one of your own characteristics. Like it pisses you off anytime somebody confuses you with the Dragonborn, or
vice versa. You've always wanted to be one. You're just I wish I was a Dragonborn.
Like, oh, yes, thank you. Like
like
it's the greatest compliment.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like you could write that into where they don't care about each other. One looks up to the other one, or they both hate each other. Like there's a lot of interplay you could do by adding a race like this.
Especially if you have one of each on the party. You have a Dragonborn and one of these.
Oh yeah,
that would be wild.
That would be fantastic.
And be like, are you guys brother and sister?
Oh my god, that would be fucking great.
Oh my gosh,
like, oh, you
ridiculous.
two must be twins. Like you can start so much shit every time you just like slip in the twins word. Like, don't say the T word.
Don't you do it. Watch them be like the exact same height.
Ooh, okay, I will get to the size in a second. We do have an incorrect on the size.
Oh,
these sizes are supposed to be large, not medium, but we'll get to that when we cover it. Okay, Marty mentioned that they were supposed to make the change, so I don't think I missed it.
Oh, I do think I remember that. I forgot to change that. That's true.
Or the Dragonborn thing of they're a myth. It's like, you guys exist? Be like, I'm not a Dragonborn. Okay, so ability score. We have strength increasing by 2 and constitution increasing by 1. Okay. So not bad. Definitely not going to argue with the strength or the constitution on this one.
Sounds like they're going the much more physical route again.
Yeah, when you want a warrior, that's definitely what you want. Be more hardy, be more powerful. I'm okay with that. Age wise, they are mature by 15 and go to about 150. Okay. Alignment. They're because they are kind-hearted, they always tend to be a good alignment. So they are one of the 3 good alignments.
Okay.
And then you have our size, which is supposed to be large. So keep in mind that this is incorrect. It's supposed to be large, beginning around 7 feet tall. So these are your big boys, which is interesting because the bearded dragon and thorny lizard, even a Komodo dragon, isn't really as big as like a crocodile. So size-wise, interesting that
this race is the one that's getting. Although, what are those huge ones? Those huge desert dwelling, like they're like freaking tanks. They don't have like spikes on them or anything. They're smooth, but they're like, oh my gosh, they're one of the most dangerous desert dwelling creatures out there because they can just tear anything to pieces.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure which one that is. So yeah, so not that it's a problem. It's instinctually not the direction I would have gone. I feel like the size wise, the crocodile in this one may have been flipped. In my mind, it would have sounded that way. Oh, the Gila monster or the Minotaur lizard or the monitor lizard. You're probably thinking of no, I know he's probably thinking of the monitor lizard.
Let me.
When you think, when you're talking about the huge slick lizard that is like not armored up, I think that's the monitor lizard. The Gila monster, I think that one is actually, isn't the Gila monster spiked? Because the kimono dragon is like completely different. That's more of the jungle dwelling.
Yeah, these look too small to be what I'm talking about. Hold on.
Okay. So while he's looking that, we have a speed of 30. Okay. So that kind of makes sense for the size that they are. They're smooth and large venomous lizards. Yeah, I think that's one that he's thinking of. Speed is 30, which is
monitor lizard. I think it's a monitor lizard.
That's what you're thinking of? Yeah,
I think that's the one.
We have thorny hide. Your hide helps bring pain to those who dare strike you. Whenever you're hit by a melee weapon attack, you can use your reaction to deal 1d4 plus your constitution piercing damage to the attacker. You can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain use of this ability when you finish a long rest.
Okay.
I'm going to put a pin in that because I like it, but I want to make it more complicated, isn't it? So we're going to come back to that. Then we have fearsome lineage. Your race is known for their raw strength. When you make an intimidation check against a medium or small humanoid, roll with advantage. Love it.
Okay.
I love that. That is so good.
Especially because generally they're good. How often they're going to be making
that's just a good ability
takes,
for a race for a racial feat. That is just a good concept. Like to have a buff to like persuasion or intimidation. So I love that. Yeah, no changes there. So going to the thorny hide, I think it's beautiful. I think it's I love the perfect, concept. Especially I love what they're trying to do. But I want to add, I want to add the thing I immediately thought as I began to read it. But now that I see what it is, it's actually better than what I was thinking. But I still kind of want to add what I was thinking to it. So this full stop may make this too much. Like it may, as is, this one might be the best one. Like no changes whatsoever. Like this one might be the best one in terms of
I do like it a lot.
As is, this is my favorite. But hear me out. Thorny hide. As a reaction, 1d4 plus your con to an attacker with a melee attack, right? Or with a melee weapon attack.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want this to almost be automatic if it's an unarmed attack.
Unarmed strike?
Like if you were hit with an unarmed strike, like not a weapon, right? Because weapons have distance. Weapons. I'm just thinking if you're like thorny, just the idea that if someone were to strike you without a weapon, like physically, or someone tries to grapple you, they have to take damage because they're physically, like it's basically grabbing a cactus. You know what I mean? If I swing a sword at a cactus, I could get stabbed. If I choke a cactus, I'm getting stabbed.
Yes.
So it's like when I was starting to read this, when it's like help bring pain to those that dare strike you, the first thing after I read that was, oh man, so anybody who touches me get hurt. Then I read the melee weapon and I'm like, no, that's actually better because as a reaction, I can just like roll my shoulder and then stab him. So I get it. This one is better than what I was thinking because mine's almost too weak because it only was going to apply. But now that I'm thinking about it, if someone attacks me or touches me and grapples me without protection, should they not also take damage just immediately? So I'm not saying it needs it. I think the thorny hide as written is better than what I'm thinking, but I'm kind of wouldn't necessarily be that upset if roleplay wise people who physically touched you.
I mean, you could literally just add the line that unarmed strikes automatically take this damage,
right,
without using your reaction.
What about grapples? Do you think if someone grappled this creature they should take damage too? And should it be sustained? Like as long as they're being grappled they have to take damage? Like so if they want to grapple you, they have to endure some level of pain. It's too much. I know it's making it too much for a race, but at the same time, I'm really intrigued by this idea.
I would say, because even on like a thorny lizard, like I could probably find a place to put my hand where I wouldn't be getting stabbed. So
Yeah.
I would say that there's at the very least justification for, yes, let me take the initial damage like I would if I was doing a melee attack, but
But once
not
grappled, I'm
not
gonna
giving
be
it
protect.
sustained
Okay.
damage. So that's the only reason, because I do feel like sustained damage would be too much, but I do understand why.
And that's why
that
like
mindset
I
goes
already
there.
that's why I prefaced it with this idea is probably going to be too much. But as I was reading this, it's like I do kind of like the idea that you have natural armor that if people get too close, it hurts. And I do like that using a reaction with a melee weapon attack is the best way to write this out. But part of me is just like, but if you touch me, that should be like,
because basically this is armor of Agathis, but you have to use your reaction. This is permanent armor of Agathis, but you have to use your reaction.
What is it? So I got this.
Armor of Agathis is your protection from magical force surrounding you. Basically, you get temporary hit points, and as long as you have those temporary hit points, anytime someone hits you, they take cold damage. And they take
gotcha.
5 cold damage per level.
Okay, yeah. So something similar. So like I said, I already knew it was going to be a little bit much to add to it. I don't think it absolutely needs it, but I could see a DM role playing like unarmed strike against you are going to suck. Because again, you're all thorny and a monk comes up to you and starts punching you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, I feel the same way for if a monk goes up against a paladin in plate armor and you start doing unarmed strike,
Now,
that
I
should make your fist bloody.
I would make an exception for something like or at very least for some of the attacks of the way the open hand monk, because a lot of what they're doing is like
precision,
like pressure points, things like that.
But again, that's why it's getting too complicated and too pedantic. But
fair, but
yeah, I just feel like if you're physically spiky, you need to be a little bit like be wary of getting too close. So again, I Marty, you wrote it the right way the first time. That is a much better way to do it. Part of me is just like, I think in High Point,
yeah,
I wouldn't necessarily want it. Maybe the whole deal is like in High Point, I'd role play it that way, but I probably wouldn't rule it. Like I wouldn't have it written in stone, but I probably would rule it that if someone like tried to attack you from behind or hit you with an unarmed strike and missed, and maybe that's it. Maybe if it's not like this one is, if someone hits you with a melee weapon attack as your reaction, you can, hit them. But maybe you could rule it as any unarmed strike that misses or that crit fails against you takes damage. Again, a little bit more complex, but the idea of if you wanted to add something there. But that's how I would probably role play it. I would just role play that, yeah, you're spiky, so therefore, it's kind of like the first person to say, wait, I have a spiked shield, so I could just bash it into someone's face, right? That's what I think of, right? If you have a spiked back, yes, if you back into someone, they're going to take piercing damage. Like, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with that.
Agreed.
So,
no, I'm here for that. I'm definitely here for that.
Yeah, Marty, the grapple is a little bit much. Like, I think you already have the other race that does the grapple part or has a grapple mechanic, so you don't need this one to be protected against grapple.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm glad you like the unarmed strike. Like, I still think that there's something available for, for being able to add unarmed strike. What's going on, Cosmic? So yeah, but no, I am super happy with all of these. So no, I mean, Marty, a fantastic job, like absolutely wonderful with what you've done with all of these. Oh, bug. Really, really well done. So going back to the first one, yeah, the dexterity makes sense, the charisma makes sense. I think everything was good. I think the only thing that we would have suggested on the first one was that with wrong and you can either do the tail is, I think my two options were either make the tail more of a decision instead of fall, instead of
give it hit points.
Yeah, instead of it being when you go to 0 hit points, it happens. I kind of like the idea that you get to choose to detach it. So that's one option that I suggested. The other option that I definitely promote more than that is when you lose it, getting a free dash action without opportunity attack.
I do like that.
So I think that's my only thing there. Dude, the spider climb, the altered spider climb with
I like that a lot.
Contact, beautiful. with the Timsha or the Timsa. What was the one with this one? Speed to 40
Yeah.
would be mine. And again, my mindset, I don't think it's wrong.
This one does have the claw as well.
Oh yeah, the claws. Oh yeah, so add the bite, grapple, and speed. I think are my two biggest things here. And knowing the next one, I don't know. I would consider changing the size. Maybe this one's the large and the next one's medium.
Right.
I'm still on the fence about that.
I do like that switch.
Especially knowing that we have a small, medium, and large in this set, and they're intended to be that way. My mind just says, why isn't the crocodile the biggest? When you look at like a gecko, a bearded dragon, or a bearded lizard, and then a crocodile should have been the large.
Right. And
then it makes sense for the grapple, because then at large you can grapple large creatures. It kind of makes more sense that would be the large creature. So as a suggestion, not a critique, but as a suggestion, I would have swapped these sizes there.
Okay.
I would have made the crocodile the large and the bearded dragon or the thorny lizard medium.
Okay.
But otherwise, adding the grapple bite and increasing speed to 40 for the crocodilian is my only suggestion there. And then with the last one, just beautiful. Maybe again, my slight suggestion would be to add some sort of roleplay aspect that Thorny Hide hurts against unarmed strike.
Right.
But again,
right.
that's not even. I have to admit, the reaction's the better way to do it. Like realistically, that is the better way to do it. How it's written. So there really are no changes to the third race here.
Except for potentially the size.
Or yeah, that's my only critique.
But yeah,
would be the size. That's more of my suggestion as a whole with all of the races. But aside from that, for being 3 reptilian races, we talked about like adding it into lore, right? I understand that this may be Marty's creation for their setting, but being able to take all 3 of these as a group, right? Like saying, I want to expand what races are available in my world. And by taking these as one, right? Like here is, a group of 3 reptilians. But I also feel like while I could take any individual one and just kind of have them in my world, the way that they read, I almost want to believe that these are of the same region. Like you would expect these to have evolved next to each other and almost maybe even be the same community. Like I was talking about, the geckos are the inner community. They're the networkers. You get into their city and they're the merchants. They're the ones that want to help you get around their town. But before you reach them, you ran into the crocodiles, the ones that are the defenders. They're outside the city being like, what are you doing here? Don't cause any trouble, and we won't cause any trouble, right? And then you have the other guys that are more, you have the bearded lizards that are more of the enforcers. They don't want trouble. But
if trouble happens, we're the ones who go handle it.
They're the ones that go out and solve it if they need to. They want to protect everybody, but the crocodiles are like the town guard. So I could see all of these being just random. I could see randomly throwing these races into any town or any region, but I could also see any DM being able to create an entire city state or a continent where these grew and evolved together and intertwined. Because you think about like the Underdark, where you could have multiple either races or communities building off of each other, right? Same exact kind of concept. Is I can imagine being able to build an area where in one town you come across a network of all 3 of these, where it's literally just a mix of all 3 of these types and they're all kind of the same race, but very types. What is it? Ogres and trolls and goblins. And hobgoblins, like
hobgoblins and the bugbears.
They're different, but they're all
goblinoids.
Yes. So these could be the same thing, right? These could be, all reptilianoids,
yes,
but roughly the same community, even though they're technically different. Or you could easily split these up and not think twice. And that's what's really nice about these, is they're versatile.
I do like that.
Easily
Yeah.
Attainable, and easily able to easily able to be like put in almost any situation, which is what I really like.
Adapted to.
Let's see. Okay. Hey, a bug.
Swimmers.
Nice order shouting for the next group. Oh, bugs. Right. Because the next group are the insectoids.
Oh.
Insectoids. That's right.
Yes.
I was so confused on that. So the speed of grapple bite, I had mostly done the large Macrian for because the fearsome lineage, but could still be swapped out the other way. So yeah, I totally get that for the fierce lineage, which is the ability to have the intimidation check, the advantage on intimidation. That's what Marty was saying, why they were supposed to be large, just it helps with that. But I honestly, it's not so much the size that I'd be worried about. It's like you look at them in their face and they have all of these spikes,
like,
and they just have that look of I am going to end you if you push us. Right?
If anyone's a Trekkie, whenever I think of like just physically intimidating, and not necessarily just because of their size, but like in the series Deep Space Nine, they had I swear they were called the Cardassians.
Yes.
Right. And I don't know what it was, but they had these like almost like snake cobra like additions to their necks, and it had these. It just looked very intimidating. It just looked very like aggressive, and so like even if they're not necessarily large in stature, I can see them being scary. Similar to the Klingons in that same series. So I don't know. Yeah. I totally get that.
Everyone agrees with you in chat, and looks like Hecate submitted something new.
Yes, I saw that.
So yeah, so with Marty, so with the fearsome lineage, I get the logic behind it, but I don't think it would be required to keep that based on size. I think just look is enough. So yeah, totally up to you, but I don't see any problem switching the two sizes between the croc people and the bearded lizard and still keeping the fearsome lineage, because again, like you say, the race is known for their strength and their like their ability to stand on business, right? Like the whole point is not their size that people are afraid of, it's what they're willing to do, and that to me is enough for you to hold on to that without the size issue. So I think all in all, I'm really happy with this. This was phenomenal. I am so excited to see what you did with the insectoids next time we do those. But as for this one, I mean, I didn't really have a lot of things to like say about it. I mean, for a compatibility with High Point, I think there are those few things that I would change just to make them make more sense. Because while they're nice as they are and really great, I think as a group to accept all of them, like if I were to bring all of them in, like just as a cluster, I think in order to just make them a little bit more than a lizard folk with a different lore, I'd want to see those slight changes that I made. I'd want to really make them stand out, right? The grapple bite, the increased in speed, being able to decide when I drop my tail. Those kind of things for me are what would really make these more than just a lizard folk with a different background. Yeah, because unfortunately that's kind of, I'm not saying that these are boring by any stretch. They have a much richer lore, but if I'm only going to get what another lizard folk could get, I really want to have that like extension, right? I really want to make sure that these incentivize me in a way to want to follow that background. And these feel better than the lizard folk in terms of their lore. These feel connected to the lore. Right. So yeah, other than that, I would need to make those slight adjustments just to really make sure that they would be worth it. But other than that, they get all of the other bonuses. I think the only other reason why it won't get a perfect 10 out of 10 as well is because it just, as much as I like these and would like to use them, aside from the changes I would have to make, it doesn't quite give me that's inspired me to make my change, or these are things I haven't thought about. These are great. These are awesome. I love the enrichment, but I don't know if this is going to add anything that I don't already have. You know what I mean? It doesn't really like change High Point in any way, but I would like to use them. Okay. So in that particular case, congratulations, Marty. Your first one's gonna get a 9 out of 10. Wild. I think it's fantastic. I love it. They're not imbalanced in any way. They are very unique. They don't seem to just follow any kind of like standard cookie cutter format. They are intriguing as well as unique, but at the same time, in order for me to actually like put them in High Point, I'd probably make those slight alterations. But outside of that, I have nothing bad to say about these. So I am super excited to see what you have next, because again, it's so interesting because like when it comes to a race, sometimes you think you have to, when you want to create something, you think you have to do a lot to it. But at the end of the day, it just has to suit its purpose. And a race really just gives you part of your background, part of your upbringing, and a couple unique quirks that no other person would have had by default, right? The things that you can't learn. And these suit all of the needs. I'm actually kind of surprised. The only thing that I was actually expecting to see and kind of happy that I didn't see is none of these got water breathing.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually really happy about that because that felt almost too expected and none of them got water breathing. I kind of expected it from the crocodile at minimum.
Yeah.
But none of them got extended water. Like I would even say like the crocodile could have even had an option to hold their breath for 10 minutes.
Yeah, or an hour or something like that. But
not water breathing, but extra holding your breath, that could have been added on here and I wouldn't have been upset. But at the same time, I'm really glad that it wasn't that cliche or that standard.
Yeah. No, I like that. I definitely like the direction that they ended up going with it.
Yeah, Marty even says crocs don't breathe underwater. So yeah, and like I said, I'm glad that you didn't do that because I think that would have been a standard for anybody who thinks about aquatic creatures. From a D&D standpoint, I think a lot of people would have defaulted to that. And that's why even like again, being able to hold your breath for an extended period of time, I could have seen you add and not been upset with it. But again, I'm glad that you went the direction that you did. Yeah, no, that was great. I am super happy about that one. Again, it just it blows my mind that it shouldn't blow my mind, but like I love seeing, and it always surprises me when I see someone want to get an effect off and use something of another D&D reference that has that same effect, but wants to alter it to make the effect more unique, like the spider climb with 3 points of contact.
Yes,
that right there,
that's huge.
That right is what tells me that this has a lot more credibility to it, and it's not just a reflavoring of another option, right? It's not just saying I like what this thing is over here, but I don't like what it says, so I'm going to build the same exact thing but with a different skin. It's showing that you're trying to relate what they can do with why they can do it, and that's a big thing for me in High Point. When I try to relate what can be done, it's if you want to do something that's outside the book or outside the norm or requires creativity, my biggest thing is, does it make sense? Can we get from point A to point B that you're not basically just telling me, well, I want to do the thing that person can do over there, but because I can't, I'm just trying to make up a reason why I can't.
Right.
That's what I don't like. I don't want someone saying, I'm not allowed to do this because of XYZ limitations, so I'm going to break the rules to remove limitations. I don't want to do that. But if someone can find a different way there, if someone says, I can't get what they have, but I can get this next best thing, or I can get there, but I have to go a very roundabout way, and they find that roundabout way, I'm all for it because that's the creativity 100%. That I'm looking for in my players and in my gameplay. But yeah, if someone just wants to say, oh, I like this race, I just don't like the fact that they come from the desert, so I'm going to rebuild this race, word for word, but they come from the forest. It's like, then just say it. You didn't have to build that, don't convolute and don't pollute the waters. I don't mean pollute as in like make them worse, but you don't need to muddy the waters with more options that could have easily just been said, hey, I just don't want to be from the desert.
Right.
You know what I mean? You could have done that.
There's a much simpler solution to that. There's no need to use a whole new sub race.
Exactly.
Just be like, hey, this one, our community was from this place. It's not common, but ours was.
Exactly.
But that's fine. Yeah.
That's kind of what we're hoping for. And yeah, I do agree. Yeah. So all of that. Yeah. No, I'm super happy with those. I'm really interested to see what the insectoid ones now. Like I'm super excited because I'm trying to think what playable insect races are there currently. Because I don't know any off the top of my head. I don't know a single insect race that you can play in D&D. Chat, do you guys know any off the top of your head? And anybody know?
I swear there was one that I saw. Race? I think it might have been a homebrew one, but it was like a beetle.
Like you would think, right? Like why not? Why not have like different insectoid races? I don't know why that's not a thing. So even more of a reason, Thrycreen And that's bright green. Who are they? Oh yeah. Ah, thank you, Soul. I have seen these before.
I don't think I have. That's wild.
Yes. The Mantis Warriors. That's why. I don't ever know them by their official name. I just know them as the Mantis Warriors.
The Mantis Warriors.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Giant praying mantis bipedal, standing 5 to 7 feet tall. Yeah. Basically, most abilities compared to a human, but just slightly stronger.
Interesting.
Nice. Good call.
That's wild. I didn't know that. Very cool.
No, you got it right. Technically, it's a hyphened name, but yeah. Interesting. Oh, very nice. Good call. Usually found on Shar. Okay. Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right. Well, let's see. Where are we at? You know what? It's 9 o'clock. Maybe we'd be able to call it early today. We usually go pretty late.
That's all right. No worries.
Looks like you got a question in chat. We'll end with that, and then I think we will probably end it up. Almost midnight for Soul, so yeah, maybe we'll end it up a little bit early.
Cosmic, why do I have an idea that I know what your question's going to be? And why do I have another idea that there's a great way for you to find out? And it's going to be to check the Discord. I just updated our Discord with the schedule. So you should be able to see what is next. And yes, sir, good sir, Mr. Cosmic, you are next up on the list with your undead creature. I believe you called it what was it, a giant boss or a uniboss or something like that. But yeah.
All right.
But no, I thank you so much, Marty. I really do appreciate this submission. This was very cool. I thoroughly enjoyed this race, all of these races. Yeah, that was
yeah. No, this was really cool, and I'm looking forward to more. So yeah, as a package deal, you could probably take individual ones, but I think it's more enriching to take all three of them. I definitely want this as a
very much so.
Deal.
Very much so.
And then wow. So Soul says we're usually on until about 3 or 4 a.m. for them.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And then yeah, Marty, very very welcome that you enjoyed it. Hopefully we will get more from you as time goes by and as you continue to create. Definitely continue. Do not stop. You this is all pretty good. So yeah. And then looks like the rest of that's still for you. So that's still for.
Oh yeah, I'm just gonna reply to him in chat real quick. But
cool. All right, so then I think that's gonna bring us to the end. I think we're just gonna have a shorter stream today because it is gonna be a very long week. Oh, another update that I didn't mention before, but I did a bunch of work. I spent like 5 or 6 hours today working on the tavern. So the wall is nearly complete.
Awesome.
I was able to cover about 80% of the wall today with its top coat. So once I finish that, I'm pretty much ready, and pretty much able to do painting next weekend.
Oh, okay.
So painting should be done next weekend, which means the tavern, hopefully if I can get that all done in one weekend and the painting's just done, that should be the final bit. Wall will be done, and it'll just be furniture at that point. So tavern is just that much closer to being done.
You might get it painted in time for our extra stream.
The wall should be done for our extra stream. Yes.
Okay. Cool. Character judging. Will you ever judge characters for stream.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean, Soul.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, was it Soul that submitted a character? Like, you and I had talked about how to actually go about reviewing.
Oh, like a character build?
A character build, right?
Interesting.
So
yeah, I don't know if we've made any decisions on how we would do that, because that's a little bit outside the scope of our standard.
Yeah, that's
our standard review, right? Because that's not really something that, like, I get it, because you could get the build at the very end and then just show off like this could be what someone could build, but it's a little bit outside of the scope of what I think we want to do in terms of like showcasing, because there's a lot of variables that come into the end build of something, right?
So you would say it would be closer to a showcase than anything else, is what?
If anything, yeah.
Okay.
It would probably fall underneath the showcase, because it's just, there's so many specifics that I kind of like the idea that the homebrew is more about the things that we're adding to the greater game and not the things that we like chose all the way through the end.
Interesting.
Because again,
the stuff that already existed.
Because for one, and maybe it's just also biased, like I'm also, you guys know this, I'm not a huge fan of the building out a character from the top down. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't like knowing what the end result is and then building up to that. I always like to figure it out as I go. So it's also just not my wheelhouse to look
what
at
if it was a gamed character?
What do you mean?
Like somebody played this from level whatever to level 20.
That's what I'm talking about. Is for me looking at it as like looking at the character as a whole from what they are like at the end. Is I don't know what that does for me, because it doesn't tell me anything about like how they got there, why they got there, and I don't look at characters.
You can't really see the story that comes along with everything that they now have.
All I can see is how the character.
They got this cool demonic sword. You're like, where did it come from? How did you get there? How does it play into who and what you are? Okay.
Right, and it's just like I could judge like whether or not I like what feats are together and everything, but it's not how I judge. That's not how I look at like a character build. So I don't know if I would even be able to judge it, right? Because I'd be like, yeah, that's for a level 20. That looks like a cool feat. Those feats that you have, it looks like it fits like the class that you chose. But why did you choose that? There's for me, it's harder to understand the value of looking at that. So I wouldn't mind trying it. I just don't know. I don't know how we would do that. I don't know how we would go about. Do we want to look at it? Because I mean, again, when you think of a character too, you don't see it in the level of progress. Like when we look at subclasses, we're looking at them from level 1, level 2, level 5. But when you look at a character, how do we know what happened when? You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of telltale. There's just this is what it can do. And so from that point of view, it's like if you gave us like maybe a BBEG for an encounter, I could work with that, right? Because now I'm looking at it from the point of view of
an actual encounter perspective.
How would I run this? But if I'm just a character, to me, a snapshot of a character isn't a character. It's just a snapshot of data.
Right.
So I don't know if I would be a good resource to dissect that. Or at least I don't know how, and I want to try. I'm not saying that it's off the table. I get what
you're saying.
It's not a standard Monday review, and I don't know how to.
It's definitely something that we want to like be able to really do justice when we do approach it, and so like finding like the most appropriate way to do so. I totally understand being like smart about that. So I definitely think there's some ideas to like bounce around. I almost like the idea of like if you had this, but see, then we would need a whole what do you call it? A whole party to go up against the BBEG, right? Because hopefully the BBEG is not like this one-on-one BBEG. It has a little bit more to it than that, but I don't know. I definitely think that there is, and if you guys have suggestions for this, please, I would love to field any suggestions you guys have about how we could go about something like this. I know Soul was talking about doing this as like a broken but balanced like segment, like having that be its own thing. Again, I think a lot of what Vortex was talking about still applies, just how to present the broken but balanced build how to critique it, how to look at it, how to weigh it on the scales, so to speak. And I think he's right that if there is some sort of like opponent or something that you can put it up against, like honestly, that's kind of what I was thinking, is like doing a one-on-one like battle off on like two different builds. Like you show one build, you show another build, and then you like put them up against each other. But you know, that might be, again, a tall order. That might be its own like special stream, like one of our extra stream type deals, you know, if we're gonna do something to that extent. And even then, like, imagine putting up a wizard up against a barbarian. Like, their playstyles are going to be so significantly different. Like, it's going to be hard to like really see, is this wizard going to be able to shine if they're like an abjuration wizard, or if they're, you know, something that's more like divination, you know, are they really going to be able to demonstrate what they can really do, you know? Because that's really what you're trying to do. It's really what you're trying to see when you're looking at these builds, is like, let's see what we can really pull out of them. Let's see what we can really see that you guys have to offer. And it's interesting. Like, I have all these ideas in my head about what I am thinking of when I'm creating a character, and that's kind of like what I imagine presenting a character build would look like. But at the end result, after you've done all the work, there's so much more there, and there's so much more to go over, and there's so much more to consider, which is why it's kind of nice, like Vortex was talking about, creating your character from the beginning, and like just starting off with your character however they are, and like watching them grow into whatever it is that they grow into. And if they earn this, you know, necromancer blade, decide to like go down that road, then they start becoming the necromancer, because that's just what they do. That's just what happened in their game, in their role play, and that's the path that they chose for themselves. So, you know, I definitely believe that there's going to be really, really good ways to present that, but I definitely think it's worth making sure we have a good solid grasp on how we want to go about it before jumping into it too quickly. So, wow.
Why?
Wow.
I don't know why my unlurk command isn't working right now.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. Soul suggested doing like death battles. People submit two characters and have them fight it out. I have thought about doing stuff like that, because we want to do the same thing with like the sidekicks, but it would be kind of cool to have like an arena, like do it through Discord, where people can bring in their character builds. We'll vet them, make sure that they're legit, and then we can run like we can actually run that via Avery in Discord, and actually have like the players themselves run their own combat. So I can DM it, and then they can just.
That would actually be kind of cool. I would love to do that.
I have thought of a lot of different ideas like that.
This just got interesting. Raising error position 191. That's
I
one.
don't know what that means, because
It's
oh,
it might be something like where there's like a colon or something.
Wait a second.
Ooh.
Is that what it is? That's gonna be so dumb. There we go. All right, I found it. And I fixed it.
Beautiful.
All right. Stupid little things. Okay, so yeah, so that's gonna be us for today, right? Yeah. I don't think there's any outstanding other questions. So yeah, so keep in mind, guys, that we will be live again on Sunday the 20th. So this coming Sunday the 20th is going to be our extra stream.
Yes,
Holy crap, that's coming up really quick. So again, we have a poll in Discord right now. I will pop the link to our Discord in chat right now, as well as all of our other socials if you guys want to follow us. And I will be prepping to do a pop culture build, and we already have our character decided, so we will make that
Yes.
announcement closer, probably on Saturday. We'll make that announcement. We'll
Cool.
do another community stream this weekend. And aside from that,
Sadly, I will not be here this upcoming Friday for stream. Just as a reminder.
next Friday.
This upcoming Friday.
Oh, this Friday. So this
Yes.
Friday you will not be here.
Correct.
Okay, cool. So let's see. You have a messaging chat, and then Soul's excited for the pop culture build. Yes, I am really excited about doing this. I think we have a good format for it as well. So I'm super excited about doing that. So this Friday I will be running solo. So I might just do another history of. I've had a couple other ideas that I've been kind of tossing around and doing some minor research of.
Okay.
So I might just throw out another history of, or I might just have another talk with chat depending on who's there. And if you guys have any questions for me, maybe we just do an AMA. I don't know. But show up for that this Friday. We'll be there. Otherwise, we already have our next item picked out, Cosmic's item for next Monday.
Yes,
But
indeed.
before that, on Sunday, we will be live again.
Marty, I'll get with you in Discord about that, but I thank you for that. So I'll make sure I get those updated.
All right, y'all guys. Well, thank you guys so much for showing up, everybody. It has been fantastic. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you guys have a fantastic week ahead of you. We will be back on Friday as always, or I will be. Kage will be out, but we will both be here on Sunday for your community stream. So keep in mind out for the Discord. Check out the Discord for any other updates, and we will see you guys in a couple days. Cheers.
Deuces, my friends.